Wordy Octopi is an LGBTQ-friendly podcast. Themes may include foul language, violence, and other adult themes. Listener discretion is advised. Scene 1, take 1.
Hello and welcome to the Wordy Octopi Podcast. I am Lasu and we are also here with
11.
Yay!
As you can call me.
As you can call. Wait, what?
I have many names, but for this purposes, we're going to go with 11.
I mean, we have 11 on the cover, so that is
Exactly.
very great.
The name I go with this stuff in particular is 11.
You sound so mysterious.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, so anyway, we're co-writers and
Friends.
yeah.
We're co-writers and besties.
And besties. Oh my god, we share a brain cell somehow. We don't know how it happened or when it happened, but somehow we just share a brain cell.
We only have one each, and it's shared. That's about it, yeah.
Yeah. We're here today to do a dramatic reading of our story that can be found on Tapas currently, which is called Knightfall. It's gonna be fun, hopefully. It is a comedy. After that, we're gonna have a breakdown of the chapter and how we started writing it. That's really
and
it.
what it's
Do you
like
have anything?
to co-write, because I feel like a lot of people haven't co-written in the way that we've co-written, and it's kind of interesting, and I'm surprised that it's actually worked.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did come to 11 and went like, well, I have this idea on how we should co-write it because I heard of an author duo who did the writing that way. I was like, I feel like we should try this. And
Didn't you get the
I don't
idea
think
from
it's
another
gonna
podcast?
work.
Didn't you get the idea from another podcast?
Yeah. It was it was technically a podcast. It was the podcast it was an interview at the end of an audio book. And I cannot remember the book. It was a thriller, I know. And it was an author and their editor, actually, that got together and decided to co-write at some point. And I am very
And then we
stupid.
stole it from them.
But yeah, we will talk more about how we're doing it later.
In case you too want to co-write with a shared brain cell with someone you know that lives 6,000 miles away.
Yes, because that's another thing. Distance.
Yeah. So Lazu lives in Denmark and I live in the good old US of A. So co-writing is a little more complicated for us, and that will be part of it as well.
Yup. And also, we don't know how it works either, to be honest. It just kind of works.
It shouldn't work.
It shouldn't. It really, really shouldn't.
Especially, I feel like we both have somewhat, I wouldn't say prideful personalities, but we're, passionate, you know? And so the fact that we're able to usually rationalize everything out, and it doesn't matter. We'll get there.
Yeah, for now, we were going to do the dramatic reading of Chapter 1 of Knightfall.
Wahaha. Lazu will be playing the part of the lead character, and I will be supplying every other voice.
Except for a Danish taxi
Except for the one Danish person, yeah, because I don't want to insult the people of any other country.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Danish people wouldn't get insulted, but, that's fine.
Yeah, but it's not worth it. I'm just a dumb American who can't do accents.
And meanwhile, I'm a dumb Danish person who tries to speak English.
Yeah, but English is already a mistake, so can't really make it worse.
I like how you're like, I don't want to insult Danish people, and then you insult English people. Well, English
yeah, because
talking.
I am English people. I can do that.
You're an English piece of bleep.
That's me. Technically, I guess English would be Europe, but whatever. I'm American. We got the best English over here in America.
Well, actually, with your Octosona, which will be available at some point, I showed it to a friend, and his first question was like, are they British? So you can actually go for that because of your love of tea.
Oh, there we go. I'm actually British. That's okay. I use a British accent for most of the characters in the story, and it's not a very good one, so we'll just go with that.
And anyway, we need to read.
A lot of this is probably going to be cut. That's the point of editing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'm gonna take some water so I can actually read through text.
Yes, I'm sipping on my tea.
Is
I've
there
got
gonna be drinking
DNT.
ASMR? Yay!
It's Shadowfell Slumber Tea. It's cranberry, and it takes a really long time to brew. It takes like 12 minutes to brew, which is crazy.
Nice. Are you ready to read?
I'm ready to read.
Chapter 1, Pilot. There is only one place I can land, and it's 30 feet down. Despite it being night, a sharp light bites into my eyes as I try to hone in on the target. Even if I jump perfectly, a glass roof still stands between me and my way out. Bowing my head, I say a few words of prayer to Maddie. I know he'll get me through this unharmed. I'm ready. Action propels me forward. Hoisting myself onto the banister is the easy part, but what goes up must come down. With no time to think, I let my instincts take over and leap. Free fall. Twist body, turn in air. Back down, head tucked. Engage core. Braced for impact. Glass shatters. Rotate. Land. Hit with 3 points of contact. It doesn't stop it from hurting, but it definitely hurts less. There's silence as I assess potential injuries, but Maddie had my back once more. Literally. And though his smell is worse than I would have liked, he saved my ass so I can forgive him. I give a big thumbs up, and a thunderous roar of cheers takes over the room as the director yells,
Cut!
My muscles didn't feel great as I dragged myself off of Maddie. Once I was clear, some production assistant hauled him away. Until next time, buddy. It wouldn't be the same Maddie, but a crash pad was a crash pad, and I trusted them with my life every damn time. The stunt coordinator, Corey, raced over to remove me from my harness and disconnect me from the wires that lowered me safely to the ground. And with that, I was free. Several members of the crew came up to pat my back and tell me how awesome I looked and how they could never do what I do. That was my moment. Every time. I lived for those tears and compliments because once I left the set, nobody thought about me again. It was all about the faces people saw on screen, the actors, but no one ever talked about how cool we made them look. Over top of all the commotion, the producer's voice called out,
That's a wrap on Jade Sandoval.
I bowed my head and soaked in all the glory of a job well done, and the end of my 15 seconds of fame. Then again, any day that I got to fall from something was a good day in my book. The glass crash was a sweet bonus. The fact that it was made of pure sugar was just a coincidence. The adrenaline still rushed in my veins, and my body still shook with tremors, but I felt alive and in control. That was the end of one job, and in this town, who knew when another would come along?
Hey, Jade, I have another job for you, by the way.
Corey leaned over to me with a big old smile on his face. Does no one take a week off in LA? I joked, but he knew as well as I did I couldn't go a week without purposely bruising myself on something for a camera.
Trust me, you don't want to. It's the double for the leading role.
Corey said with a knowing glint in his eye. He knew I'd never been so lucky to double the leading lady in a film, and how desperately I wanted to. But I couldn't make that obvious, or they'd make me work for low pay and exposure. I crossed my arms and held firm. What makes you think that matters to me?
Because I know what you get paid, and a one-bedroom in Burbank needs a leading role.
The worst part of that point was that I'd rather not have an apartment at all. Why was I paying $1,700 a month when I'd be content living on set all day, all night? When does it start? I tried to make my voice sound dry, but the excitement couldn't help but shimmer through. This is why I wasn't an actor.
Monday, in Denmark. Your flight leaves in 2 days. Get ready for fire.
Shit! Fire hurts, and Maddie usually isn't there to help me. But damn, fire looked awesome! Going back home was the worst part of every day. Why would I want to sit in an empty apartment with thrift store furniture, fueling my body with a protein shake, when I could have been jumping out of a helicopter and eating catering paid for by some rich white dude in Beverly Hills? The only way I got through it was by routine. A few hours at the gym, maybe a good action flick and another protein shake, practicing jumps and falls at the pool, and then sleeping because resting my body was most important. Everything I did was to be sure I could get back on set and be thrown out of a window again and again. What else was there to live for anyway? Luckily, I didn't have to wait long before I was getting my passport checked and pulling through security in LAX. Believe me, I was always looking for an excuse to leave California. I'd never been to Denmark, but had heard it looked like a fairy tale and I could use a little magic in my life these days. 11 hours non-stop, only to be filtered through customs like a herd of sheep. There was no crowd control at all. Several hundred confused tourists wandered around aimlessly looking for signs that didn't exist. Whatever. I was told there would be sword fighting, and the idea of getting to stab things got me through. There was always something exciting about a new set. New characters, new costumes, but most exciting of all, new stunts. I couldn't wait to learn what shenanigans I was going to be forced into this time around. It was a long drive, going from the hustle and bustle of the inner city to the outer edges where houses were few and far between. My field of vision was taken over by actual fields of yellow flowers and the one single road that seemed to go on endlessly over the long, flat earth. As someone who had the Hollywood Hills peering down at me around every turn, seeing a land so vast and flat was off-putting. After 30 or so minutes, the driver tried to make conversation. "Will you be in Denmark long?" "We're filming a movie, so a few months." "Oh, you're an actor. Did you know that Denmark was the backdrop for Shakespeare's Hamlet? Elsinore is the Danish town of Helsingør." I wasn't an actor, and I'd never read or watched Hamlet in my life. I had no idea what he was talking about, but he seemed so proud to share it. I couldn't shoot him down. "Interesting. That's very cool. I'll look out for details next time." That was the only conversation we had. Eventually, small buildings started to pop up past the fields and we drove into a small town. I could hardly believe how colorful everything was. Buildings, flowers, the fucking sky. Los Angeles was glass, metal, concrete, and a cloudless red haze instead of blue. The only color we got was graffiti. It felt like a fairy tale, just as promised. The driver dropped me off in a small field between the buildings and along a channel of water. Hundreds of crew members wandered around, looking like headless chickens in stark contrast to the peaceful environment around them. There was multiple trailers set up, the nice kind with bathrooms. This set looked like it had a real budget. Finally, I'd get to do some awesome stunts for a lead role on a big-budget Hollywood film. Today was the day my dreams started to come true. I found Kari among the panicking set workers, talking into a headset and holding a script in his arms.
"Hey, Jade, you made it. How was the flight?"
"Long. Ready to stretch my legs. Got anything fun for me?"
"They're starting with scene 1 today. You'll start tomorrow. For now, rest up, read some of the script, and get over that jet lag."
"They're starting with scene 1.
Yeah. This director has some innovative ideas for how we should film. I recommend keeping an open mind. Oh, here he is now.
I spun around to be met with the top of a man's broccoli hairstyle. He had a model-looking Barbie doll with blue hair linked to his arm, reigning over him by at least 5 inches.
"Jade, this is Ari Riker, the director and co-writer."
He was the definition of a man-child. There was no way he was older than 20, poking around his phone with one hand, having the other one firmly grabbing the side piece's butt. Once again, I felt keenly why I could never have become an actor. My smile was slipping at the thought of me having to respect him this whole shoot. "Ah," I said, as my face melted to a full grimace. "Riker? Like Christopher Riker? Who didn't know the three-time Oscar-winning director of masterpieces like The Untitled and Empty Colors?"
"Yup,"
Ari said without looking up from his phone. "Cool. This your first movie?" I asked out of an obligation to be nice.
"Yup."
"Your dad must be so proud you want to follow in his footsteps?"
"Yup."
Well, that was a waste of time. Not so much as a twitch of his eye. I looked over at Kari, who was forcing nervous laughter with a grin so tense I thought his teeth were going to crack. Not a good sign. The director finally looked up from his phone to eye me up and down like I was just a piece of meat with no expression on his acne-scarred face. Then he looked at Kari.
"This is Crystal's stunt double, right?" "I have a stunt double?"
The side piece shrieked happily and clapped her hands a million miles an hour.
Not you, babe. The Crystal from the movie. I changed her name to yours. Isn't that fun? Oh, yeah, cool. Thanks, baby.
She leaned down, and kissed his cheek. It was impressive she could keep her balance in those heels in that position. Aw, shit. This movie was going to be the definition of nepotism, wasn't it? My first big break, and this was the dude I needed to listen to for 12 weeks. Part of me wanted to toss myself back on the plane and ride home before I got in too deep. But a big budget meant big stunts, and I was holding out for something awesome, regardless of how the film turned out. Maybe that was the good part about being a stunt person. No one knows who you are when the movie sucks.
Is she ready for the dance jump?
Ari asked Corey.
We want to film at dawn. They're going to set up the rig over the river.
Corey shook his head.
No, we agreed it's not safe to land in the water from 50 feet up. We need to use a green screen mat.
Ari stomped his foot and groaned like a toddler who got his favorite toy taken away.
But I promised the people this movie was gonna be all practical. Just because you put a green screen behind a stunt doesn't mean it isn't practical.
Corey's patience was clearly waning as he dealt with this single brain-celled organism. I didn't blame him for not being willing to upset the director on day one, though. Ari went back to his phone and poked around once more.
Whatever. That'll make it work with my genius, I guess.
He walked away with his side piece in tow, going to ruin someone else's day, I imagined. When he was long gone, I turned to Corey with my eyebrow raised. Dance jump?
Yeah, he wants some viral dance before the jump. He's trying to bring the story to a younger audience, is what the producers tell me.
Oh, great. I couldn't think of anything I wanted to do less than some childish dance routine, except for maybe talking to that director again.
Get some rest and loosen up those hips. 6 a.m. call time tomorrow.
Corey said with an apologetic hand on my shoulder.
You'll be needing this.
From behind his back, Corey produced a mangled mess of dark blue hair in a lace-top wig and a thick as shit pile of papers. I snatched both from him with a look that told him I would never forgive him for this. Stuck in Denmark for 3 months with the asshole and a crappy set wig, not exactly the summer vacation I was hoping for. But hey, if I got to jump off of something, that could make it all at least a little bit better. I looked down at the stack of papers with the words, Dawn or Knightfall, in bold letters. Sounded like an old, young adult novel I never would have read growing up. At least the word knight had the promise of horses and swords. I did like horses and swords. Off in the distance, a sound rumbled through the air that sounded suspiciously like elephants. It couldn't be actual elephants, right? A sound effect, maybe? The fuck kind of movie was this? As I walked to the craft services table, I chucked the script into a bin. I didn't need to know what was happening, only where to land. For a moment, I considered throwing the blue mess with it, but no. I wanted this job despite everything. It would all be fine once I got into gear.
Yay, we got through it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay! That went without a hitch.
Couple of snafus along the way, but we got through it. All right, well, that was chapter 1. What did we all think?
Pilot.
I'll take questions from the class now.
I have
All right.
a question.
Yes? Lazu, with your hand up in the back.
Yes, my question is, why did you choose that title for the chapter?
Oh, pilot? I don't know, we just thought it was funny because it's like the first episode of a television series, and this is the first chapter of a story, so like kind of similar vibes, even though this isn't about television, it's about movies. Doesn't matter.
Wow, I never knew that. Thank you for replying.
The pilot is the first episode of a television show.
Yes.
I think I just blew so many people's minds. Like, nobody knew that fact.
No, not at all. People are always like, why do they always call the first one pilot? That's weird.
It's just a coincidence that every writer on planet Earth decided that the first episode of their TV show should be named Pilot.
Yeah, just a coincidence. It's like one of those things where multiple people get the same idea at the same time despite having nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the entire world for the past, how long has television been around? 120 years. 1928, so almost 100 years.
Oh, nice. Happy 100 years, Pilot.
Yeah, I don't know if it was called pilot, but anyway, we resort to our talking point list to stay on topic. Kind of the most important thing to touch on is just the opening in general, and using a stunt as the opening, which was kind of a combined effort between both of us. We had put off starting it for a little bit, and we didn't really know how to start it. And I had the idea. I was like, why don't we start in the middle of the stunt? But I was thinking about doing it on the set already. It was your idea to be like, well, no, let's do it on the set before, to kind of like set up the characters normal and keep the character in a happy place. And then the contrast between that and the horrible Ari Riker set, which was definitely a way better idea than just starting in the middle of the awful set.
Yeah, we also wanted to do like action because it is for an action fantasy contest for Tapas. Yeah. Well, not for Tapas. Well, on Tapas. Tapas is holding an action fantasy tourney, I think they're calling it. And we just want to show, look at all this action.
Yeah, and it stars a stunt person.
Yeah, and it's double fun because, like, we kind of imagine that right before this moment where the story actually starts, action was cold. So it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh, you know what we should talk about is where the idea came from.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was just like Discord messaging back and forth. Whenever we found out we were going to be co-writing a story, I was like, all right. I was at work, and it was a busy day at work, so I told Lazo, I was like, just pitch me a bunch of ideas.
And then I did.
You did. You sent like 5 or 6. And then I had actually already been writing a story that starred a stunt character, but I didn't really get to dive into the stunt side of things as much as I'd wanted to. So whenever Lazo was like, how about a story starring a stunt character who get isekai'd into the story they're working on? And I was like, brilliant.
And
I was
also,
like, I think I went, wait, stop. No more pitches.
Yeah, fun. You were like, you had me at stunt person. I was like, great.
Well, you wanted a knight.
I think, yeah, I wanted knights. I wanted isekai. I wanted fun. I think the original pitch was that the stunt woman go to the fantasy world and then teach the knights proper, like, stunt etiquette to make them better knights.
Yeah, we kind of steered from that a little bit in the grander scheme of things. There's still hints of that, though.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch is there. It's just, like, better.
Yeah, well, we just kind of took... Well, the characters we created ended up being so much fun to play with that we just kind of went off in a different direction. And also, just trying to make it long enough for the tourney, we had to kind of complicate the plot a little bit. I wouldn't say complicate. We had to add concepts to the plot to keep it certain length possible in the end. But I think mostly it was just the characters ended up being a lot of fun. Kind of steered us off course. Like, let's just hang out with these characters.
Yeah, and we were also like, we immediately went for comedy. It was like, oh no, we can do many fun things with this. We need to do this.
Yeah, well, we both, I think, I said that my like strengths were satire, comedy, and then I don't even know what else I said. I don't know what other strengths are. That's about it. And you also had written kind of satirical comedy in the past. So between the two of us, we're like, we just got to go that direction. And then that would also... Well, I was going to say that also keeps it separated from both of our other stories, but your other story was also a satirical comedy. So it benefits me personally to show my range as a writer as compared to my dark action fantasy.
Wow, yes, you.
It's all about me, okay?
Everything is about 11, the mysterious person with many names.
Yes.
But also, my other comedy story is an isekai also, and I do like writing and consuming isekai, like both the female lead ones, the male lead ones, basically most of them. I've read so many, oh my god. And it's so fun to see how you can take the isekai trope and then mold it into something new that isn't, like, it's not like we're entirely original, of course, because that's hard to be in this day of age. But we do take the known tropes and, like, have a lot of fun with them in different ways.
That's actually a comment we've gotten quite a bit on the story, is people saying, like, oh, I love this twist on the traditional isekai, and just, like, kind of a new take on it. But your isekai is kind of your your strong suit. I honestly don't. I mean, I was the type of person, I knew the word portal fantasy. That's like, where my understanding of character gets thrown into a fantasy realm kind of comes from. So I don't actually know the traditional Isekai type tropes and format. So Lazu is an essential part of this story for that, and that alone more than anything. People would be making fun of me left and right, like, do you even understand Isekai? I'd be like, no, I do not actually. Fun fact.
Fun fact, I have no clue. But also, I have no clue about movie sets and stunt people. Like, I know the concept, I know the idea. I like stunt people as, like, a job. I think they're fucking awesome. Can we curse, actually?
I mean, we just in the stories.
Yeah.
So.
I was gonna say we just did, actually, the time.
All right, fucking Riker.
Yes. Never mind. We can curse. So...
Not for kids, children, not for kids.
I think that stunt people are fucking awesome and cool, and I don't know enough to actually write one convincingly if I was alone, which is where I'm using Eleven's skill, who can tell about why they know stuff.
Well, knowing stuff is... I'm going to talk into my microphone now instead of looking away from it, but knowing stuff is... giving me a lot of benefit. I used to work in Hollywood. I worked on film sets for a bit. I went to college for film and decided I just hated living in Hollywood, so I moved away and decided to write stories instead, I guess. But as far as stunt stuff goes, I always said if I lived in a life where I was less lazy, I would be a stunt person, because I absolutely think it's fantastic. I would actually want to be a stunt car driver more than anything, but regardless, I love it. And where I never got to do it because I'm not physically fit enough to do it, I watch a lot of stuff. I consume a lot of stunt concept, and so my knowledge is kind of third tier, like. But I do really love it. It's a passion of mine to learn about it. So I'm sure that I don't get everything 100% correct. And we don't even try and get everything 100% correct. Like, there's so many things about the film set that we purposely do incorrect.
Wrong.
Because it's an inept set, and it's also comedy. So, but
and
we try and make it
bad.
Yeah, we try and make it realistic enough that it exists in a world of realism, and it's not like a bad film set take, like, from a TV show, that somehow the people making the TV show don't know how a film set operates, but also having, like, a ridiculous aspect to it that, like, I think later on there's, like, fight scenes that they don't even have choreography for and stuff that's just, like, a bananas ridiculous that you would never do on a film set, but just playing it for laughs and trying to hit some of the little things along the way that's like, oh, I see that these people actually kind of know something about film sets, but maybe hopefully then they know that the stuff that's wrong is mostly done on purpose.
And I learn a lot too, because I didn't know a lot of the things that we put in with the film sets. And, like, 11 kind of took lead on this chapter, because there was a lot of stuff where it was like, wait, what?
There's a lot of terminology, I think, is the big thing.
Oh, yeah.
The hardest part about, like, sitting down and writing a chapter like this when you don't know the terminology is you don't know what things to include, but just being able to do things like understanding, like, that there is a craft services table, that's a thing, and etc. Little details like that.
Also, one of the things that I didn't know was that they used the full name, like, that's a rap for Jade Sandoval is one of the lines we do have. I was like, they do this? Like, it's just such a simple thing. And I was like, well, okay then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that every set uses first and last name all the time, but yeah, they usually do. They call rap on key players. I don't know that they do that on stunt people. They should if they don't, because they put in a lot of work. But yeah, they do call rap. Even on, like, student film sets, we all call rap on the actors and stuff. It's just like a fun little tradition. Y'all clap for them as they walk off set. It's cute.
That's nice. Yeah. What I wanted to say was also that we were talking about that Jade has to film this movie, and you were like, well, they usually film these kinds of movies in European countries. I was like, just for fun, jokingly being like, oh, she can go to Denmark. And then 11 was just like, oh, yeah, great. I was like, wait, what?
Well, I think the way that I phrased it was even stupider. The way I phrased it was we were starting on a set, and it was just going to take place outside of Hollywood, because I mean, my mindset having taken over on that part, like, that's what I know. I know Hollywood. And I started to, like, describe the atmosphere. I was like, oh, this doesn't, like, feel like a fantasy place. And I think I said something like, man, normally it'd be so cool if we could, like, have her travel to, like, a European country to film on, but like I don't want to get things wrong, and I don't know any European countries well enough. And you're like, what about Denmark? I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a place. That's a country that you live in. Oh my god. It was just like, yes.
And then my mind was blown. I was like, oh my god, I can write a story with a fantasy film set in another country and get the details correct. It's a dream come true.
Yes. Also, like, we have small tidbits in this first chapter, at least, with the yellow flower marks, where it was like, this is what I see when I just, drive in a car or in the train or something. That's my view of Denmark, mostly. Well, during summer-ish, anyway. And it was fun to just send pictures to 11 and be like, here, as an American, describe what you see.
Yeah, that was a lot of what it was you being like, here's what you would see. Now, how would you interpret that as a tourist? And then me like kind of writing it out a little bit of like, okay, here's how I touristy would think about this little bit, and then you'd fix up the details a little bit.
Yeah, it was a combined effort.
And we also picked out, like, you sent me a bunch of pictures of individual cities and towns and stuff, and I was like picking out like what vibes I liked from each little place, so we could use that to describe the scenes and stuff, but using actual real Danish towns for the vibes.
Yeah. We did end up meshing multiple Danish towns together, though. So, like, the place they are recording is not a single Danish town. It's just the vibe of a collective of Danish towns. But, yeah, they're all on... Well, in Danish, it's called Sjælland, but I think it's Sealand, I think the English name is. I don't know. But also, the Danish version is funnier because that means soul land. So.
Soul land?
Yeah, like sjæl is like soul and land is land. So it's like soul country-ish.
That's
soul
fun.
Land.
I think Soul Land actually needs to be a place that they visit in Danflo.
That could
Off
be
to the
fun.
land of souls.
Another thing I wanted to hit on is Maddie, the divine crash pad. Very important.
Yes, that is your mind, baby, and it has taken off.
Oh yeah, Maddie has gathered a cult. So it's like, I think it started off with us writing the action scene, the first action scene, and we did leave a sentence space for something that Jade could do as like a pre-stunt ritual, I think.
Yeah, we wanted her just to have something that she did before every like call of action, just to kind of really like hone in, because we change tenses every time action happens, so it goes from past tense to present tense, kind of to highlight how in the moment she is. And we wanted just that extra like oomph of like, okay, here's the line, here's the ritual, here's action, and then the reader can always get into it. And we didn't know what that was going to be for the longest time.
Yeah, we were talking about like something about tying her shoes or like just something. I don't know. We had
doing some sort of hand wave, something much stupider than what it ended up being.
Yeah, and then suddenly I was like, okay, I have this idea. What if she prays to a crash pad, like a Mad, and let's call him Maddie because like it's very stunt-ish. My brain.
And then I was like, I love that. It's brilliant. We did it, and it's like the second line of the story, and it has continued. It continues throughout the entire story. There's never a moment of like, oh my God, it's oh my Maddie, or like dear God, dear Maddie. It's always that. It takes the place of God in the story, and people have latched onto it so hard, and it's brilliant.
So much harder than I thought anyone would, because yes, we think it's hilarious and like it is so in character with Jade and who she became from there. Like Maddie is so integral to the story now and to Jade now that it's just like we can't imagine a Knightfall without Maddie. And people have just grabbed Maddie and been like, prayers to Maddie.
Well, like my favorite part about it is that there's like 2 or 3 or 4 ways that fantasies typically deal with the like, oh my God situation, because that's such an integral part of vocabulary of people today, is to say those expletives like that. And they'll do the oh my gods. They'll have multiple gods. Celestial thing like stars or whatever. That's probably the most common one I see is stars. And I like the concept. I like the concept of fantasies not having the same oh my God expletive that we have, because that's built up over years of religious background to get to this point. And so using Maddie, even though it's a story that's grounded in our reality, is just such a fun, funny way to acknowledge that kind of thing that happens in fantasy all of the time, but in a way that's super unique to Jade and the character. And even the world, because the world is just goofy like that. And I think it's a godless world other than Maddie.
And we also really like Maddie. Like, we both do bouldering, climbing, and I do aerial hoop. And, like, the Mads save our bags there a lot as well.
I would have very many broken bones if not for crash pads.
Oh, yeah. Prayers to Maddie, honestly.
I need to start doing that before I climb, actually. I just need to do, like, a prayers to Maddie ritual and then see if I climb better.
I've actually started talking to the Mads. It's like, people do look, and I'm like, well, you know what? You will cry when they don't get your bag because you didn't pay your proper dues.
I'm going to just lay down the map and stroke it and be like, look, Maddie, this one has a dino
I do
that
stroke it. It's not even funny. I do stroke.
Catch me when I fall, Maddie.
I even, like...
Beautiful.
Had one moment where I just laid down on the mat and I was like, thank you, because it had just caught me after failing, like, my legs failed because I had spent too much energy, and then I just fell down and was like, thank you, Maddie.
Thank Maddie.
Yeah, it is just an integral part of our lives now, and Maddie is here to stay, for real.
But yeah, I love how much love Maddie has gotten. I love how much hate Ari has gotten. And the elephants. People also latched onto the elephants. Like, all the things that we kind of wanted them to. It kind of came out with this chapter, which has been really nice to see.
Yeah, it's really nice because when you are a writer and you write stories, you have a lot of, like, intended points you want to hit and make the reader, like, attached to. And usually they don't.
Oh, we found out that a lot of ours do not.
No. But Maddie hit and the elephants hit, and yeah, it's great. I'm really happy Maddie hit.
Most of chapter 1 hit the way we wanted it to. Later chapters, some people I think, judge people a little bit harshly, but, you know, that's okay. People are allowed to have their own judgments on things.
Yes. They're allowed to have feelings for characters, which is either good or bad.
Yes. I feel like we should talk about the tapas contest now and kind of how we got to this collab.
Oh, great. Let's do it.
Sweet.
So how did we do it?
How did we become these legends that we are today?
How did we become heroes on everyone's lips?
So tapas. We've talked about tapas, and I feel like we need to kind of break down the contest that this is in and why we ended up writing it this way, because it's clearly not the most convenient way to write. I actually, you know what? Before we transition to here, we haven't actually talked about yet how we write.
Oh, that's true.
I feel like that's important, and we skipped right over it.
Oh no! How dare we? We were so into Maddie.
I know. Maddie is great. So I think it's important to talk about how we write before why we're doing it, because how we write is probably, most people would probably think it was a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. When I pitched you the idea on how to do it, I was also like, this is probably not gonna work, but let's try it anyway.
Yep. Yeah. And after the first chapter, I was honestly like, the first chapter took so long.
Oh, yeah.
It took so long for us to figure out, get the rhythm of everything. So the way that we write it is that we open up a Google Doc, we share it between us,
get on a Discord call,
and we start writing together at the same time in many different ways. Sometimes I write the beginning of the chapter and Lazu writes the end of the chapter. Sometimes Lazu takes lead and writes the whole chapter, and I go behind and I fill in all the details and edit and paste things out properly. Sometimes that's reversed. Sometimes... Yeah, Lazu will write and leave a big old chunk of add description here, and vice versa.
just not super great at descriptions, and just being able to write the vibe of the description I want, knowing that I can't do it super well myself, is very, very nice.
And then I just come in and crack my fingers, pull out all my favorite adjectives, and fill it in.
Yeah, it's great. And sometimes 11 leaves small comments and is like, do this here. I was like, sure, I will do this here.
Character line here, please.
Yeah. One of the things I have noticed is that the more we wrote, the more character voices got like stuck in our heads. Like we do, well, let's just take it from the start. As 11 said, we just, go into the document, write it, and once we have a chapter, we do a dramatic reading in a much less serious way than what we just did. We edit so much during those chapter reads. It's like insane. And it's like everything from just like the character voices are getting so solidified in our minds that we can just hear when things are off.
Like we'll say a line, be like, no, that character wouldn't say that line. And we have the I was in character situation where if you're in character deeply and you read something different than the way it's written on the paper, we always go and change it to whatever you said because you're in character. And that's what the character would do then.
Would say.
In the mind. Yeah.
And especially Jade is like, because it's first point of view, first POV. She is a mix of both of us because we both write her internal monologue, like we are co-writing everything. But Jade is still like a special case. And it's so interesting to see because I can pick out lines that 11 wrote and lines I wrote and lines that we have like meshed together and lines I'm not sure which of us, one of us wrote or how it came to be. And yet it all feels so Jade that it's like...
I think we were talking about this the other day, that Jade has just become this combination of us. That like, to us, we hear, okay, that's a Lazu line, that's an 11 line. But to somebody else, that's just Jade. Jade just has both of those personas inside of her and flip-flops back and forth them pretty seamlessly. I don't think there's ever a point where I'm like, well, this feels completely different than what she was doing last chapter. And if it ever did, we usually address it as we read through it. Like, oh, no, that sounds off. There's definitely times where you're reading through it and you're like, Jade wouldn't say it like that. And we just change it up and stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes I do get final call on Jade because my brain is so in Jade. And meanwhile, there is a lot of the other voices where you kind of take lead in changing the dialogue. And there's also times where I don't know what... Like, I know what the character would say, I just don't know how they would say it. So I just write out the general information I want 11 to, like, write out, but in the character voice. It's so fun to see, because then when I get back and see the edited version, I'm just like, oh, yeah, this makes sense.
My favorite story with that is when you were writing a line for one of the characters, and... you looked at it like, I don't think Vincent would say this. And then I read it in Vincent's voice, and you're like, oh, okay, no, he would. And then you kept writing. They just need to hear it.
Yeah, sometimes the voice is everything, which is also
sometimes
fun
the voice just adds a little bit. Because I feel like the fun thing about dramatic readings and the way we do it is that when we put, I need to stop turning my head away from the microphone. This is going to be my task. But whenever we do the readings, like it gives them so much more personality that I think, especially Leo and Pip probably the most have actually, their personalities have kind of formed around the way I initially read their voice. Like, I don't think we meant for Leo to be the like the goofy Tony the Tiger. I realize people don't know these characters yet, but like, because I read his voice so silly the first time, we went down that path, and then people love Leo now.
Yeah, and the only thing we did decide with Leo was that we wanted him to be happy-go-lucky, and he still has that. He just has so much more now because of the voice you made him.
Yeah, which is super fun to watch all that evolve and to collectively kind of like understand these characters and bring them to life as a team is so fun, because it's like fun for me as somebody who also reads the voices to then read the lines that I wrote, but then also lines I didn't write, and I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like more fun that way to not have put in all of the work for every single line, but then you go back and you're like, oh man, that's like such a fun line to read as this character, whatnot.
Oh yeah, there's There's also sometimes where like we do the split chapter thing where I write either the first part or the last part and Eleven writes the other part. And then when we do the dramatic reading, neither of us has actually seen the other part, and somehow it just fits. It's wild.
And we just keep going and
it.
How it just all comes together. I feel like, I mean, like whenever you're writing, I'll peek a little bit at like where you started and kind of where you're going, or I'll ask you like, oh, what have you covered? But like most of the time it's completely blind.
Yeah, we do have the conversation through because, like, as mentioned, we are on a Discord call and we do talk with each other while we're writing. So it's like we do have the communication going on, but it's still, we don't see every single word unless
I think it's
we
also
have
important
things that has to match up.
I think it's important that we point out that we also have like breakdowns for every chapter. So we start every chapter with like a bullet point of things we want to hit. And then we go through and we fill that in. So it's not just I'm writing something and I'm writing the beginning and Lazu's off going into Wonderland, going off in a completely different direction than was planned. Next thing we know, we're on Mars. And I'm like, well, that's not where I thought it was going. So it's all like planned out along the way. But how we get there and the character interactions along the way are always fun to be surprised. It's kind of cool to like have an idea like, oh, I have the story and I want to make it. And then suddenly half of it is written without you having done anything. Like, oh, I get to read it. So cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. I also feel like we got into a good habit of ending every finished chapter with doing bullet points for the next chapter. Because it's like, so whenever we get back, we don't get back to a blank page. We get back to the bullet points. And we're like, we know what we're getting into. We can add, we can move away. Sometimes the bullet points actually cover like 3 or 4 chapters rather than the single one it was planned for.
The last like 10 chapters have been one set of bullet points for it just kept adding, and we're like, oh, this will be like 3 chapters, and ended up being like 12.
Yeah, we just kept filling out, but also it's good chapters. I like them.
Yeah, I think we actually started prioritizing like doing chapter breakdowns over reading the previous chapter. If we're like getting to the end, I have to go to work or whatever. Oh yeah, mention that we do this at like 4 o'clock in the morning my time before I go to work. But that's just the way it works out timing wise.
Yeah, we do it like 10 or 11 at my time in the morning, because it's so funny because 11's day routine or day rhythm, or how to put it, it like matches mine 1-to-1 despite 6 hours time zone delay.
I am not a morning person. I just unfortunately wake up in the morning.
Yeah, it's wild to me. I mean, if it was the other way around, I could never.
Well, that's why it works. It's like funny how it's all just like, it was puzzle pieces that just fit together perfectly in a way that I really didn't expect it to at all. Which leads us very nicely into the Tapas contest and why we ended up doing this. Yeah, so like why? Tapas. Tapas.io. What can we say about Tapas?
Well, it is an online comic and web novel platform, is for one thing, but people mostly know it is a comic platform. It has a lot of villainous isekai stories. It has a lot of... Wow, I feel like I'm just plugging them now.
Not sponsored, they have, sort of.
No, hashtag not spawn. But they also have a lot of the Korean web novels licensed to English now. I think the newest one, and one of the most popular one in recent years at least, which also has a comic, is Who Made Me a Princess, which is also an isekai story thing. Just so people are familiar with the like genres. Can you say the word? Thank you. Tapas is like holding. There's also a lot of BL, and there's a lot of like action, solo leveling. I think they have.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not entirely sure. They do have the the end after the beginning, which is also big. Or is it the beginning after the end? Too. Yeah, I think they have solo leveling. Yeah. They have a lot of stuff, but most importantly, they have novels, is what we're saying.
It seems like recently they've been trying to kind of expand the novel part of the website, so they've been doing these contests. This is at least the second one that I know of. Were there ones before I joined?
I couldn't, because it was America only.
Oh yeah, the first one was USA only. That one took place last November. It started in November. That's why I joined Tapas. Was a friend told me about this contest, and it was NaNoWriMo, which we don't support since they're bad take on AI. But at the time, and we didn't know that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to use both these things to get me to write because I hadn't been writing in a long time. Anyway, I went through that contest, runner up, whatever, doesn't matter. And so they have a new contest. And this one was, everybody was speculating was going to finally be international. So Lazu and I was like, it's going to be great. We're both going to be in this contest. Like, we have ideas. I had a story already written that I could use. And Lazu was coming up with it. Did you have a story already written?
No, I didn't have it already written, but I was writing a story that I was considering. But also, we didn't know anything other than that it would most likely be fantasy. So we didn't know any particulars at that point.
There were hints that it was some sort of fantasy genre. But then...
they did like a quest announcement.
Yeah, it was like a D&D style tavern quest acquisition scene that they typed into the Discord that was like, more information coming soon.
Yeah, and then we all then Tapas exploded and we were like, okay, but what is it? What is it gonna be?
Yeah, everybody was
international.
Oh my God, everybody went off. People had ideas and they were going like, guys, we don't even know what it is yet. But Lazu and I were no different. And we were discussing all of our ideas and how great it was going to be that Lazu could participate in this one because they got so much backlash for not being international last time that we're like, they have to do it international this time, where they wouldn't have made a contest this close to the other one. And then
also in the last contest where people complained about it, they were like, we have something cooking soon. So people kind of assumed that it was this one they had cooking with the international thing.
Yeah. And it was international. It was.
It
is.
But actually, before we knew any of that, we had talked about doing a collab story in case neither of our stories fit the actual criteria.
Yes. And I was like, I mean, it is possible they might do just an international. Like, it's possible they'll do one without the USA to make up for the last one being American, the last one being only American, this one being not American, which was more unlikely because they have so much USA audience. But like, you never know.
No,
but yeah, and we'd also talked about collabing previously just for fun because we wanted to do kind of that like letter back and forth project that we had discussed once or twice. It wasn't like we had never talked about collaboration before.
And we have the ghost girl love.
Oh yeah, and
audio
we've been working
drama
on some.
We want to do.
Yeah, we've had some audio stuff in the past. Like we worked on an audio book of one of my books for a little bit, and we had an idea for an audio drama. Like the collab was not like a new concept, but then
it was just a new concept to do it for maybe the contest.
Yeah, and then the announcement came out for the contest, and it included a bunch of international countries, but Denmark was not one of them.
Nope, I was sad. It was sad. It was a sad day for the Lazu. Why am I calling myself the? It was a sad day. DD. It did not take long for us to reach out to the people running the contest. We're like, okay, so like theoretically, if there was co-writers and one lived in a country that could participate and one lived in a country that couldn't participate, and they put everything under the person's name that could participate, could the person in the country that couldn't participate? Oh my God.
And the response was basically like,
we wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, we wouldn't recommend it, but legally, sure. And then Lazu meant like, I don't care if you swindle me out of everything. Let's do it.
Yeah, like, I trust you. And also I know where you live.
Yeah, right. And also, like, what, make some Tapas side money off of it, like, woo. But so that's kind of where it started, and then that was the same day I was like, okay, pitch me ideas, and then kind of took off and from there, and that was the start. That was the birth. That was the big bang of Knightfall.
Yeah, and it was kind of wild because, like, as soon as the contest was announced, as soon as we got we wouldn't recommend it, but technically yes, we just went for it. Like, we just started running and never looked back, and it was just like, great, let's do this. And I think we wrote the first week like almost every single day.
Yeah, I think you had the cover being commissioned before the end of that shift of work. We're just like, let's just have Falling Night. And then Knightfall came to be, and...
You made a mood board, I remember.
Right. Oh, yeah. But I think I made that after we started the commission. You had talked to Sip about making the cover.
Yeah.
And then they
Sip
were like, let's have a mood
is
board. So I went home that night and made one.
Artist friend of mine who I knew could probably make the cover pretty quickly, because the thing about tapas contests is that they are like, you have to be fast at writing, you have to be fast at getting the art, and you have to be fast at publishing, because it's like all kind of race with time at that.
It's very cutthroat at the beginning.
Unfortunately. Yeah, but
I joined the last contest late, and it was hard playing catch up.
Yeah, and it is how the web novel industry kind of works. It's just how it is. So
yeah, well, even under
we
a tapas contract, you're expected to write 2 chapters a week for however long it takes to finish the story. So they do like to see that people are efficient with uploading everything. So that's kind of like part of it that you would think that they look for in their judging aspect.
Yeah, and the minimum chapters was 20 chapters, which we have.
Yes,
I think
we do have now.
Chapter 20 go up on Wednesday, Thursday, something like that.
By the time this is published, it will have been out.
But yeah, we had the cover commissioned pretty quickly, and some people were even faster than us, even though we were like very fast, I think.
Yeah.
But also people had stories that already fit the theme, that they were like, oh, I can rewrite this.
Yeah. And some people just got lucky with the timing.
Yeah.
But we only started about a week late, which is not ultimately that bad.
No, and then you had to go 2 weeks to Egypt.
Yeah, and then I instantly went away to Egypt for 2 weeks. So
yeah,
but we
it was like
killed those few days beforehand. We were writing every day. We knocked out at least one chapter every day that we wrote. We had 11 or 12 chapters before I left for 2 weeks, which was
11. We had 11. I remember because I thought it was funny.
Yes, we did. But it was explosive the way that it went from we got permission to 3 weeks later, we had 11 chapters of a story, and it was like almost 40,000 words, I think, at the time.
Yeah,
probably 30,000.
It's wild. And that's also how we ended up getting to being Wordy Octopi, because we were kind of like, well, we're gonna make this together. We have a lot of other projects we have talked about that we will probably make together. We kind of both wanted to do audio stuff, like podcasts, like, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Audio dramas, and like we're both kind of want to be voice actors, so
and we will never be able to write on our own again.
No, it is so wild. It feels so
Wrong.
weird being in
I don't have a personal editor. Yes,
no.
It's crazy. Like going back and writing my True Love on Tapas contest book, and I'm like, where is the person to write when I don't feel like it? Like, I need a paragraph to be in there right now. I'll edit it. That's fine. But like, I need it to just be written. Thanks.
We were also on a call yesterday because we were both kind of like
working on separate stories.
Yeah, working on separate stories. And 11 was like, well, what do you want help for with this story? I was like, can you write it for me?
No, I have my own things to write.
Yeah, it was very mean. I feel very betrayed of the single.
Sorry, I have like 100 chapters of Love and Blood left to write.
Yeah, all I hear are excuses. Anyway.
But so we decided that we wanted to have a place for future projects we work on together, so we don't have to just shovel it onto my account in the future when we're not bound by having to be American to participate in a contest. So we kind of came up with the Wordy Octopi, which is our combined sort of platform for us to put the things we work on together. And I feel like we'll still advertise the things we work on separately too, just a place for us to get together and do all the things we wanted to, the podcast, the audiobooks, audio dramas, future books we write, Knightfall content, promotional material, etc. Just have it in one clean little place, Yeah.
We're also making a Patreon for Wordy Octopi to have the things like this Wordy podcast. I am trying to make a super cool segue and it's failing.
And insert cool segue here, we have a Patreon.
Yeah, that I didn't mention a few seconds ago at all. Anyway, we're going to be... Okay, so the thing with us and the thing with our way of doing things is that we don't fail. We just do comedy.
Yes. Sure.
So whenever you see things that might be possible fails, it is not a fail. It is just because we're funny.
It's just because we're hilarious. Anything we've ever done wrong is just us purposefully being funny. Because we're perfect human beings.
With
like
one
octopi.
shared brain cell is also kind of important here. Like, if we're stupid, that's why. I mean, we're perfect.
It's mostly the
if
brain
we're
cell thing, yeah.
Yeah. We also do fun promo videos and stuff with the climbing and the aerial hoop to try to look as cool as Jade and failing miserably. But we were talking about Patreon. And if you've gotten this far into the podcast, I am hoping you enjoyed it and didn't just hold your hand to your head the entire time being like, wow, these people sure like to talk.
There's somebody that's just like, oh, this is long enough to fall asleep to. I would do that.
I would do that 100% as well. So the idea with the podcast is we're gonna end up recording live in our Discord, which you can gain access to through Patreon. I think we haven't actually set it up probably as of recording, but it will be up and running by the time this podcast is out.
Yeah, and then on the Discord we'll have all other stuff you can participate in, questions and comments and stuff like that. You'll get to hear all the unedited stupid things we say that are not fit to be in a finished product. And
all our retakes of the dramatic reading, which I think will be cut out of this one because there is a lot
stupid laughing in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, I'm sure.
And in the future, we're gonna have a lot of other content. Like we might do like
live readings
and our recordings of our audio dramas, and I imagine we'll probably have like extra content for Knightfall and stuff like that as we go. And then as we keep going on the podcast, it's going to be, about Knightfall and also just kind of the experience as writers and web novel writers and etc.
Yeah, and also just whatever else we're going to try to do because we have a lot of ideas. And that's why we chose the octopus as like our spirit animal because they have a lot of arms.
They have a lot of arms to do a lot of things, and that ADHD person would love to have 8 arms, believe me.
Oh yeah, same. So anyway, our Patreon will be up with a lot of cool extra stuff.
If you want to check out our Patreon, go to patreon.com/Wordy Octopi, one word. There's also going to be links in the podcast description.
Yeah, I think this is. Oh, I know how to end it. Oh, actually, you did.
I do?
The C word.
The C word?
The C word! The Ari Riker voice with the C word.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's it for this time. Thank you for checking out our podcast, and I hope you come listen to us ramble on next time. Thank you.
And cut. I can hear somebody talking in my microphone.
Oh no.
Okay, it stopped. I don't know if it was like a TV or one of my neighbors, but I could just faintly hear it, like a little ghost in the background. So,
well, that's kind of scary if you have a ghost in your microphone.
That's fine. It could just be Brady. I have a house ghost that's followed me around since I was a kid, so maybe he's finally trying to tell me something. It's been a while. Welcome, Brady. We're glad you're a fan. Please subscribe on tapas.io/series/Knightfall.